originally didn't have really a video idea, and I was going to be basically saving up my energy to make a car vlog. Yes, they're coming, I swear, I've just been very busy on them. And recently, I've been having a little bit of discussion with some of the people I'm in a Discord chat with. And I talked about the whole thing with Iron Maiden and Senjutsu and all that hoopla. And then I saw the Rageaholics Metal Mythos review of it. And before I get into anything, however you feel about Rageaholics' views on political things, video games, movies, and bands he talks about, however you feel about him, I personally find him very entertaining, even though that I do not agree 100% on a lot of things that he said. There are some things that he says that I'm kind of like, yeah, I don't really agree with that, or okay, that's kind of a dumb remark. With that being said, I find the guy very entertaining. He was 100% right on this one, folks. This album sucked. Now, if you saw my review on Senjutsu, I gave it a 6.5. Now, that's not terrible. It's just kind of weak in some ways. Average at best. Looking back on it, there's like 2 good tracks. Well, actually 3. I did like the title track, Stratego, I think is pretty cool. I kind of got like a Power Slave vibe off of it. And Days of Future Past is absolutely spectacular. I forgot to mention another thing. Nico McBrain's drumming. He sounds slow on that album. Like, if you do like a 1.25 speed on YouTube, it sounds so energetic. That's what the album was lacking. Energy. And after I made my review on Iron Maiden's Senjutsu, a little, person decided to make a smart mark and make a comment saying, oh, this album's a masterpiece and you just don't get it. Screw America. Well, let me tell you something there, Slim Jim. Just because we don't have the same musical opinions and the same musical, just say musical opinions, doesn't mean you have to be a giant dick about it. So with that being said, that's what you get the little comment that you made in my comment section. Thankfully, I don't allow, negative comments, and thankfully got removed off of my comment section. With that being said, this is Tristan's Thoughts, a little, series that I decided to do. And yes, that is my name, by the way. That's a little series idea I've been having in my head, and I'm like, you know what? How about I just make my honest opinions on a lot of things? So, with today's first ever episode, well, if you want to say technically third, because I did one on April 24th, and that whole thing of bullshit, and the NXT releases that happened a couple months ago, this is basically the third installment, but screw you, it's the first ever one, I'm doing it. This is the Toxicity of the Iron Maiden Fanbase. Let's get into this video. Now, I'm just going to make one thing clear. This is nothing, and I mean nothing, against Iron Maiden as a band. This is not going to be threats. This is not going to be death threats. This ain't going to be, I wish this person would have cancer, or of anything like that. Nothing like that. It's how I personally feel about Maiden in the last 20 to 25 years, ever since they reformed back in 2000. Well, technically in 1999, but technically doing it in 1999. This is how I feel about how they are musically. Okay. I will do the same thing as I talked about. I made, a comment about talking about how people think Metallica are overrated. Okay. Here is my example. I think Metallica get way too much shit for what they have done. Okay, yes, in the 80s, they were on a roll. They released ass-kicking albums. Kill 'Em All, Ride the Lightning, Master of Puppets, and of course, And Justice for All. Okay, when they went and did the Black Album in 1991, which is going to be the near 20th anniversary, by the way, people shit on Metallica for cashing in and selling out. Here's the thing. You don't bash a band for earning a little extra more moolah. If you did, hell, Black Sabbath had done that. Megadeth had done that. Anthrax did that. Hell, even Slayer did that. Slayer have done that shit. Other bands have done that shit. Why bash one band when there are a million others that did it? Hell, even Priest did that. Back in 82, 84, even 86 they did that. Because, God forbid, Turbo was going to be a great hit. Oh, Lord, that album sucked. Point is, don't bash a band for, making a little more cash. Now, yes, Load and Reload sucked, and I personally think Saint Anger is not the worst Metallica album. I personally feel that. There's some good tracks on that album. It's just shitty production. Why am I talking about Metallica and not Maiden? Because I'm making the similarities as to that was a negative fan base because people bash that band because they sold out and they're overrated. Okay. I don't think they sold out, first of all. Second of all, they're not overrated. How's this tied to Maiden? Well, good question. It's because the fan base for Maiden is the worst thing about Iron Maiden. The fans are the worst thing about the band. They can be eventually the band's downfall. Case in point, Metallica. They shit all over that band, and Metallica's kind of fell down in the ranks. Lots of other bands have done that. Here's the thing about Maiden. They say that the later Maiden albums are masterpieces. I'm going to be honest, folks. No, they are not. Brave New World is a pretty damn good album, even though I think it's a little overrated in my personal opinion. There's still some great tracks on that album. Then Dance of Death happened. That was a god-awful album. That album I think is terrible. There's only like 2 good tracks on a pretty damn bad album. Excuse me, folks. Sorry, the alarm likes to go off. I forgot about that. Okay, then Matter of Life and Death happened. Worst Maiden album of all time. Worst Maiden album ever. Very boring. Slow. Ungodly bad. Horrible album. Final Frontier. Only 2 good tracks and that's about it. Damn good cover art, but terrible tracks. Okay, Book of Souls. It's a decent album, but it's still not the best Maiden album. This album came out and Blabbermouth.net just beat it raw and said, this is a 9 out of 10 masterpiece. It's one of the best Maiden albums of all time. Let me tell you something, ass muffin. No, it isn't. 3 good tracks. Looking back on it, the production's not really that terrible. It's just sounds very thin in some ways. And the drums are very, very weak. Low energy. Not a lot of substance on this album. I wish they would have stuck to the Senjutsu theme a little bit more. Bruce's vocals, God bless him. He tried the best that he could, but he sounds like he's at the bottom of a well every time he sings in the higher octaves. You're 3 guitarists and yet you somehow reduced yourself to keyboards. I already ranted about that in the review of Senjutsu. But people are saying this album is a masterpiece. No, it isn't! It is not a masterpiece. It's just another bland, generic-ass, modern Maiden album that is just there to fill out contractual obligations. And Kevin Shirley, please, for the love of God, know how to cut an album that's less than 20 minutes. Seriously, why is the last 3 tracks a thing? Over 10 minutes. Why? The Parchment, slow as shit. 3 songs have 2-minute acoustic intros. Who wants to hear that shit? Now you're probably wondering, well, I sure did that with Dante's Inferno. No, they really didn't do that with Dante's Inferno. That was probably a minute and a half. Here's the thing about that. That was a great song. It talks about the concept of going into hell, then getting into purgatory, and finally going into heaven. Okay, yes, it was nearly 18 minutes long. Guess what, shit dick? That was a great song regardless. The production was punchy, drums were pummeling, and John Schaefer just shreds his ass off on it album. And let's not forget Matt Barlow's amazing vocal performance. That was a great album that was a great song on a very damn good album. This is not a good album. Okay, if you like the album, more power to you. It is not a progression. It's a regression, in my opinion. Because looking at it, okay, yes, it's shorter than the Book of Souls, but you should not be making it a 2-disc album. It should be one. One disc, make it at least maybe 70 minutes, 75 minutes. If you're going to make an album that is 80 minutes, have some more songs, have original material, while somewhat keeping it new, and make it punchier more than Mike Tyson and his wife on The Daily Offspring. Does that make any sense? Probably not, but what the hell, I'm just going along with it. It is not a good album, folks. It's an average album at best. Is it the worst Maiden album? Hell no. At least there's some decent tracks on this thing. And I do like the doomy and gloomy atmosphere of it. That doesn't make it a good album, though. That just makes it meddling for a lot of other Maiden fans. Okay, first of all, nothing against Maiden. I appreciate and respect for them for making an album. It's just very underwhelming, okay? And for all the Maiden fans that may be watching this channel, take the head out of your ass and admit this album is not really that great. If you like it, more power to you. If you think it's one of the band's best, I don't know how you see it's one of the band's best, in my opinion, because it's just a modern Maiden album, therefore it's boring. Seriously, after Martin Birch died in 92, Maiden are lost musically. Kevin Shirley can't do a good album if he had, you know, Andy Sneap, Tom Allen, and Cameron Webb if he had to. Hell, even throw Roy Z if you're in there. Kevin Shirley, for the love of that, all of his good, reject Steve Harris's, you know, musical ideas. Why do you insist on giving this man more material that's over 10 fucking minutes? Okay, let me regress. On the Book of Souls, they released a song called Empire of the Clouds that was over 18 minutes, the longest Maiden song they've ever written. Okay, the thing about that song is that was a really damn good song that talked about, I think, about the Hindenburg, I believe. That was a fantastic song. But here's the thing. Not every song that's over 10 minutes is going to be an epic masterpiece. Sunjitsu, that ravelly disintegrates into utter boredom. Seriously, folks, Lost in the Lost World is one of the worst Maiden songs of all time. Boring as hell. I cannot stand that song. That is one of the worst Maiden songs I've ever heard, in my personal opinion. This is only going to get worse if Maiden fans keep beating off to this album saying it's a 10 out of 10 masterpiece, when in reality, it's not even close to a 10 out of 10. If you cut that 10 off, it will just be a 1 and a 0. Seriously, why do people think this album was good? It's not good. If you like prog and you like heavy metal, listen to something else. Okay, Maiden, if you have one, and I mean one more album left in you, go back to the 80s. Listen to songs off of Peace of Mind, Somewhere in Time, and Power Slave, and take those musical ideas and make it into a modern masterpiece. Look at what Judas Priest did. Okay, yes, fans shit all over Angel of Retribution in some ways, which, to be fair, that album's kind of a half and half. And they shit all over Nostradamus, which, in my opinion, kind of rightfully deserves, even though there's some pretty damn good tracks on that album. You know what Priest fans did? They slapped them in the face and said, you know what? Screw this. We're not going to pose out. We're not going to sell out. We're going to create probably one of the best albums we did in our entire discography, Redeemer of Souls. Was it a great album? Not particularly. There were some weak tracks on there, and the production's very, very, very thin. But guess what? It was still a return to form for the Priest fans. And guess what? They made it a better sequel with Firepower. One of the best modern masterpieces of the band's nearly 50 years of heavy metal existence. That's what Maiden needs to do. Embrace on the old and the new fans and say, you know what? How about we just create something like our 80s output and embrace that instead of pondering to this slow, unforgivable, boring shit fest. Maiden fans, I want to address something This is nothing against not making death threats here. No death threats. Why do you insist on calling these albums good? They're not good. Seriously, I don't get the appeal of these albums, personally. Just like, big example, I don't get the appeal of Megadeth. Hell, I think Rust in Peace is an average album in some ways. I even think Peace Sells is overrated. Yes, go ahead and crucify me for all I give a damn. I don't get the appeal of some bands. I don't get the appeal of Iron Maiden's latter-day output. I don't get it. I have given these albums multiple tries. I still don't get its proggy affectations. I hate Seventh Son of a Seventh Son. Yes, I said it. That album blows. There's only 2 good tracks on that entire album. Nothing else. It's just ponderous, boring synth prog rock at the worst degree. I want to address, I actually do like Maiden. I am actually a Iron Maiden fan. Of their 80s output, not a lot of their 90s, even though their 90s output's pretty underrated. With that being said, Maiden, the fans, you need to get your head out of your ass and grow up, grow a dong, and say, you know what, this shit sucks, and we need a big Iron Maiden album. Will it happen? Probably not, because Nickel McBrain's nearly 70 and everyone else is in their 60s. If Bruce has one album left, talk to Kevin Shirley and say, you know what? This ain't working. Cut ties with him and go talk to Andy Steep, Roy Z, and probably Cameron White if you can. And say, you know what? We're going to go out with a bang and do one more album that's going to appreciate our 80s output and put out a modern metal masterpiece. I will hope that one day Maiden will grow up and say, you know what, we're going to screw all the prog expectations and screw all the slow songs and say, you know what, we're going to make things more metal. So anyways, that's all I got to say about this one, folks. Yeah, this one went on a bit long, but I had to get this one off my chest. If you want more details, just listen to what Razorfist said on Senjutsu and all that stuff. And before you say anything, if you think he was just shitting on the band, he made an Iron Maiden, thing, and he's shitting all over Maiden, that's because, let's be frank, Iron Maiden kind of deserves a little shit for what they did. So anyways, with that being said, thank you guys for watching this video. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe. Join the herd. I'll talk to you guys next video. I expect a lot of hate in the comment section. Peace out.